Life can be hard, but there's specific actions you can take to make your life better. In this video, I'm going to give you 10 specific kinds of actions you can take that have been keys to success in my life. More financial freedom, greater life satisfaction, more fulfillment, even better health, and long life. So, before I get into this video, I want to ask you a favor. I've been making these videos for 2 or 3 years. I only have 3,000 subscribers on my channel, but I've made almost 90 videos and posted them to YouTube. So do me a favor, hit that like button so we can see if we can grow this channel a little bit faster. I appreciate that. Now let's get into it. I may not be the most successful person in the world, but I've had some conventional success in terms of my career and finances and other things. And because I'm a college professor, sometimes my students ask me about, what does it take to be successful? Can you share some of your tips for success? So for the last couple of years, I've been giving them a presentation about keys to success. And they like it enough that I thought I would share it with you too. So in this video, I'm going to give you these 10 keys to success. Hi everybody, this is Bruce Lambert from HowCommunicationWorks.com. This is a channel where I teach you about communication skills so you can improve your relationships, succeed at work, be more confident, and lead a more fulfilling life. So let's get to it. Tip number 1 for being successful: be lucky. I know this is a strange tip in terms of how to be successful because in some ways you can't control it. But when I thought about the factors that contributed to my own success in life, or the factors that contributed to the success of people that I know, or successful people in general, there's just no denying that a lot of our success comes down to good luck. Well, what does that mean, be lucky? It means be lucky to be born healthy. Be lucky to be born to parents who love you and to take care of you. Be lucky to be born in a peaceful, prosperous time and place where you're not hungry and vulnerable to violence and war and disease. So much of our success depends upon these factors that we can't control. Even personal characteristics that we are sure contribute to our own success, like hard work or intelligence or persistence or perseverance against adversity. Even these things where we want to take credit for our own success because we worked hard. Even these things are to a certain extent the result of luck. So you think to yourself, well, I work hard. That's not luck. But ask yourself, where did the capacity for hard work come from? Or you say, I'm able to concentrate for long periods of time, and that's why I'm successful. Well, where did the capacity to have good concentration come from? Or where did your intelligence come from? Or where did your charisma come from? These things, to a large extent, we know from research, we're born with. A large amount of intelligence and conscientiousness, which is the personality trait of hard work, that comes really from our parents. We're born with that or not. Some people are conscientious and some people aren't. So when you think, well, I work hard and that's why I'm successful, but you didn't work hard to learn to work hard. You just kind of had the capacity to work hard and you were born with that. So all of this comes under the general heading of be lucky. And I know you can't actually do anything about this, but what this does allow us to do is, if we're fortunate enough to be successful in life, remembering that it took luck makes us modest and makes us humble and makes us maybe more generous and forgiving and less judgmental to people who weren't as lucky as we were. So be lucky. Tip number 2, drop the rock. This expression, drop the rock, is something that comes from 12-step recovery groups. And there's an old sort of story that goes along with it. And the story is, there's a guy, you're at the beach or you're at the lake, and there's a guy out in the water and he's drowning. And there's a bunch of people trying to help him. He's floundering, he's drowning. And you realize the guy's going under, but he's holding a big rock. And so everyone on the beach is like, drop the rock, drop the rock. You won't drown if you drop the rock. And so this is metaphorical that many of us are drowning because we're holding on to something that's dragging us down. So in 12-step recovery groups, this is normally people are talking about an addiction that's dragging you down. And that might be what's dragging you down. You might be addicted to alcohol or drugs or gambling or shopping or sex, or there's all sorts of things, to be pills, all sorts of things to be addicted to. But to be successful, we've got to drop the rock. It might even be other things. It might be things like adverse childhood experiences or childhood trauma. It might be an untreated mental illness. These are all things that we've got to address. We've got to address these primary problems in our lives that are holding us back. It's just almost impossible to be successful over the long term and to succeed in the terms that I'm talking about, which is being satisfied with our life, having peace of mind, having some financial freedom. It's very hard to have any of that if you're still hanging on to an addiction or a trauma or untreated mental illness. So drop the rock, take care of those big problems. It's a key to liberating yourself so you can enjoy greater success. Number 3, choose yourself. Or another way of thinking about it, nobody's coming to the rescue. Now, this idea of choose yourself, I got from a great book by James Altucher called Choose Yourself. And I'm really a big fan of James Altucher, as he's a self-help kind of author who has a lot of great advice. But the idea of choose yourself is that, especially in the modern economy, no one's coming to save you. No one is coming to the rescue. Your parents aren't coming to the rescue. Your employer's not coming to the rescue. The government's not coming to the rescue. Your university's not coming to the rescue. Your spouse or your girlfriend's not coming to the rescue. Nobody's coming to the rescue. If you want success in your life, you've got to try to do it on your own. Now, this doesn't mean you don't need the support of friends and family and mentors and parents and spouses and partners. Of course, we need some support. But generally speaking, we can't count on that. We have to act as if no one is coming to the rescue. And our success is in our own hands. We can't wait around and think, well, someone's going to pick me. Some employer's going to pick me, and then I'm going to have a great job and a pension and security. Or some man or woman is going to pick me, and then I'll be married and I'll be happy and everything will be fine. No, assume your happiness is totally dependent on you on your own. And that if you don't take care of it, if you don't have the resourcefulness to take care of it on your own, it's not going to happen. So choose yourself. No one's coming to the rescue. Number 4, deep work, the power of concentration or digital minimalism or avoiding distraction. This is all due to Cal Newport. In some ways, I could have titled this video, I read the self-help book so you don't have to. So this idea I get from the author Cal Newport, I'm a big fan of. And he wrote one book called Deep Work. He wrote a very, very similar related book called Digital Minimalism, and they all make the same point. And that is that it's very hard to succeed and it's very hard to concentrate with this thing distracting us all the time. We've got to be able to unplug from these things long enough to do some meaningful deep work. The other point about deep work is that most of the value that we actually create, most of the value we contribute to an organization or that we create for ourselves is done during long, uninterrupted periods of concentrated work. So if you think 80% of your time is doing this kind of shallow work, emails, meetings, and stuff like that, and there's that 20% of your time where you're uninterrupted, almost all the value, probably 80% of the value, comes from that 20% of the time where you're undistracted, uninterrupted. So you've got to be able to cultivate that skill. Now, I came of age before the era of an iPhone. I was 42 years old before I had an iPhone. So I grew up learning how to do uninterrupted deep work. And I was partly successful because I was able to do that. If I was growing up now, I don't know what I would do if I was constantly distracted by an iPhone. So it's much harder for you if you're younger because these devices are designed to distract us and to capture our attention. We've got to break free of them. And the other concept Cal Newport talks about is digital minimalism, which is reducing use of social media, reducing use of our smartphones in order to make ourselves available for this high-value deep work, which leads to satisfaction, success, and fulfillment. Number 5, this is financial advice. This is a basic financial advice that you probably already heard, but it's a key to being successful and having any financial freedom. And that is pay off your debt first. Try not to incur very much debt or be very thoughtful about debt. Sometimes debt is worth it for your long-term goals. I think some student loan debt is probably worth it if you're going to go into a field that pays you enough that you're going to be able to pay the loan back over a reasonable period of time. And some debt like buying a house or a car is reasonable as well. Credit card debt, though, is just absolutely deadly because of the high interest rate. So avoid credit card debt. If you have credit card debt, pay it down as fast as you can. And then once you've gotten out of credit card debt, try to cultivate multiple sources of income. So with me, I have a job as a college professor, but then I have consulting income as well, where I have a consulting business where I teach healthcare professionals how to talk to patients and families. And I have, money invested in the stock market as well, so that's kind of a source of income. I don't make any money on YouTube yet, unless you guys hit that like button and share these videos. I won't grow the channel enough to ever make any money off of YouTube, so I'm just giving you this content for free. But I'm trying to cultivate multiple sources of income, and that's a key to long-term financial success. So pay off that credit card debt and begin to cultivate multiple sources of income. Number 6 is cultivate relationships. Cultivate personal relationships. And the corollary of this is don't be an asshole. And this I've learned from personal experience of, unfortunately, being an asshole and having it cost me personally and professionally. And I learned over the long run that personal relationships are really the key to your sense of life satisfaction and fulfillment. Life is hard. It's going to be hard. There's going to be losses. There's going to be disappointments. There's going to be setbacks. It's guaranteed. Suffering isn't like some particular odd feature that only happens to some people. No, it's built into the structure of life. So the way you can get through those hard times is having meaningful relationships. And begins probably with family, but also with friends, and then with romantic relationships as well. So you've got to cultivate those, which means making an investment in these friendships, being there when people need you, being trustworthy, being reliable, being generous, being able to listen, not being always focused on yourself. And these relationships pay just enormous dividends. There's compound interest with these relationships, just as there is with money when you invest it, because over time, these relationships grow deeper and they become more and more valuable to you as you face the inevitable hardships in life. And if you're a narcissist, if you're an asshole, if you're self-centered, if you're always focused on yourself, if you're stingy, if you're a taker, all this is going to be bad for your career. It's going to be bad for your relationships. It's going to be bad for your marriage. It's going to be bad for your children. Your coworkers won't like you. It's just hard to be successful. And these are hard-won lessons, from my own personal life. So take my advice. Cultivate those relationships. It pays huge dividends in the long run. Number 7. Read and write. So this may seem obvious, but maybe not. I mean, I'm from this pre-smartphone generation. I came from a family where both of my parents read a lot and my brother read a lot. And I actually didn't read that much as a kid, but as an adult, I just read all the time, constantly, either reading news on the internet, which is often a waste of time. It just makes me feel bad, but often reading books on my Kindle, listening to audiobooks during my commute, reading long-form articles, reading scientific papers. It's not a coincidence that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and all these people who are enormously successful, Elon Musk, they got where they are in large part by reading. And even now, at the pinnacle of success, they spend an enormous part of their day reading. There's a great jazz writer that I follow on Twitter. His name is Ted Gioia. And he talks about how you have to manage the input in order to produce the output. So he says he spends a couple of hours a day writing, but he spends even more time reading and listening to music every day. He's a music critic, so listening to music is a key part of his livelihood. But the idea is that the input is very carefully curated. It's very high quality writers and thinkers and super talented musicians. So he's bathing in high quality content all the time. You have to immerse yourself deeply in this in order to produce anything of value. So I'm on Reddit, and I'm on the Reddit social skills subreddit, and people are always like, how do I become interesting? How do I have interesting things to say? And there's no secret. You have to have led an interesting life. You have to have interesting thoughts in your head, and they don't just sprout automatically. In order to have interesting things to say, you have to have immersed yourself in interesting content. And this doesn't just have to be books. It can be movies, plays, art, nature, but also books, poetry, other forms of literature. So you've got to read all the time. And then write is the practice of your own creation that benefits so much from the reading. So read and write as much as you can every day. These skills will be the key to your success. Success tip number 8, find a mentor. Life is hard. It's hard to figure out how to be successful in a given domain of activity. For me, it was, science and being a college professor, whatever it is, if it's music or being a YouTuber or doing whatever it is you do, You got to find a mentor. There's really no faster way to learn than to have a good human being teaching you. And in many ways, it's the golden era of this because we have YouTube. So now it's possible to learn from the world's greatest experts in almost any imaginable subject. So when I say find a mentor, it doesn't always have to be a person in your own life that you know personally who is going to give you one-on-one advice. Although that's a good idea. If you can find someone like that, it's invaluable. You can find a mentor who you've never even met, someone on the internet, someone who writes self-help books, a philosopher who died 300 years ago. You can find someone like that who guides you. But it's critical to find a mentor. And if possible, find another human being who's in your life personally, who you can meet with. And lots of older people, when they become successful, they actually want to give back. One of my favorite parts of being a college professor is that I get to help young people, is that I get to give them advice and try to help them be successful at the beginnings of their lives and their careers. Lots of more experienced and successful people are actually looking for the opportunity to mentor you. But don't be greedy. Don't think you can find a busy, successful person and say, can I pick your brain and get a bunch of your time for free? You've got to try to give in order to get. You have to try to cultivate a personal relationship. You have to be able to show that you're already taking an active interest, right? That you don't expect this mentor to come to the rescue. Because remember from the earlier tip, no one's coming to the rescue. The mentor doesn't rescue you. They don't do the work for you. They're just a guide. They've been out there ahead of you. They can show you the way. But I've been lucky in several areas of my life to benefit from just tremendous, tremendous mentors, without whom I would not have been able to be successful. I give so much credit for my own success in life, such that I've been successful. There's a lot more successful people than me. But to the extent that I've been successful at all, a lot of the credit goes to a few key mentors who I was just fortunate to meet. They liked me personally. I was kind and respectful and polite to them and tried to give back. And these relationships in some cases have lasted 30, 40 years. So find a mentor. Success key number 9, cultivate stoicism. So another self-help author that I like a lot is this guy named Ryan Holiday, and he writes a lot about Stoicism. He has a website called The Daily Stoic. Stoicism is an ancient philosophy, started in Greece, and then there were Roman Stoics as well. Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and all these others are the famous Stoics. And, we have a modern idea of Stoicism, which is often wrong. So I encourage you to go to something like thedailystoic.com and check out Stoicism. It's a frame of mind. It's a way of approaching the world. And a lot of the advice I'm giving, especially that no one is coming to the rescue and so on and so forth, these are sort of Stoic ideas. But one of the key Stoic ideas is also a title of another one of Ryan Holiday's books, and that is The Ego is the Enemy. In so much of what we do, we ourselves, specifically our egos, are the biggest obstacle to our success. We let our ego get in the way of learning, of being humble, of asking for help. All these things, because of our own ego or our own self-inflated sense of ourselves, we can't get the help we need or do the hard work we have to do. We think it should come easy. So Stoicism is an entire way of looking at the world which tries to minimize the role of our egos in our own lives and give us a different way of looking at the world. I don't have time to go into all the basic tenets of Stoicism. I just encourage you to check it out. And I'm going to come back to our bonus point, comes back to this idea of not letting the ego be the enemy. And Stoicism, even though it was invented by the ancient Greeks, has a tremendous amount of contemporary practical value. It's not some fancy philosophy and you're going to get bogged down in. No, it's being used by pro football teams in the United States. It's being used by the military. It's being used by all sorts of other kind of high performance organizations. It's a way of dealing with adversity, dealing with anxiety, dealing with the inevitable ups and downs of life. It's a way of strengthening yourself against the inevitable suffering and anxiety that you're going to face and allow you to cope with it in a much more healthy and productive way without being dragged down into anxiety, depression, and despair. So Stoicism is an antidote to all those things that bother us so much in the modern world. But point number 9, cultivate a Stoic philosophy of life and learn what that means. Key to success number 10, politeness, decorum, civility. So these things in our culture, kind of a shock culture, and where everyone on Twitter wants to be snarky and nasty, and the same on YouTube and on Instagram, where kind of social media promotes kind of nasty, rude way of being in the world. I think the value of decorum means a kind of classy way of carrying yourself, or respect, or civility, or politeness. These are really, really important virtues. You'll know from many of the other videos, which I'll link to here as well, how important I think politeness is as a fundamental communication skill. But along with politeness come these ideas of civility and decorum and respect. And it was these values that allowed us to pull ourselves up from being just almost like the animals, where we were killing ourselves and we were unclean and kind of barbarians, right? But decorum, respect, politeness, civility, these are values which we should not minimize their importance and think, well, they're only for kind of posh, snobby people. No, these are the values that allow us to live together in peace and harmony. So don't minimize the importance of being polite, being civil, being respectful. These are the characteristics of successful people. I've rarely met a successful person who isn't polite, respectful, dignified in some way. There are exceptions, of course, people who make their, become famous on social media by being jerks. But in most of ordinary life, successful people are respectful and civil and polite, and you should be too. All right, I have a bonus key to success, number 11, and that is hit the like button. No, I'm kidding. I do want you to hit the like button. I really appreciate it. So go ahead, stop right now and just bang on that like button so that we get this channel to grow a little bit more so that I can be successful. Key to success, help me grow my channel. No, but really, point number 11 is about, and this goes back to Stoicism. Explore the idea of self-transcendence. Self-transcendence is very connected to this idea of that the ego is the enemy. So if the ego is the enemy, that means a key to success and happiness and fulfillment is to transcend the ego. Now, if you look into Buddhism or meditation or lots of other spiritual practices, the key to those practices, all the religious traditions in the world, emphasize the need to get beyond our own ego, our own selfish desires, and to transcend our own ego. Now, traditionally, the way to do this is not easy. It's to have like a spiritual epiphany or to meditate for many years to gain some transcendence over our own self and our own ego. But there's a shortcut now. And I want to be very clear about this. I'm not necessarily recommending you do this, especially not thoughtfully, but I'm recommending you learn about it. And that is psychedelic drugs. And the classic psychedelics are things like psilocybin mushrooms or LSD or peyote or mescaline. And there's a great book about this by Michael Pollan called How to Change Your Mind. Now, I do not recommend that you run out and do psychedelic drugs. These drugs are not for the faint of heart. If you have any kind of psychiatric or psychological problems, they can do you harm. But under the right circumstances, taken safely in the right set and setting, especially with a professional guide, there's increasing evidence that these drugs can help you achieve the self-transcendence, which without them was only possible either by luck or by years and years of spiritual practice like meditation. So I think it's pretty clear now that psychedelics are going to be a major part of the future. They're probably going to be legal drugs in the next 5 to 10 years for depression and smoking cessation and trauma at the end of life and lots of other uses because they can almost guarantee that you can take this drug and in a few hours have a self-transcendent experience, which was previously only accessible to very few people. So I'm very optimistic about the use of psychedelics to help cultivate this self-transcendence and growth beyond our own ego and the benefits that it might have for many of us who are troubled or feeling spiritually troubled. So look into it, and the great place to start is Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind. So there you have it, 11 tips for being successful in 2020 and beyond. If you like this kind of video, go on over to howcommunicationworks.com, sign up for our email list. Like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification icon, share this video with people who you think might like it. We appreciate you spending some time with us. We know there's millions and millions of other videos you could be watching, lots of other things you could be doing. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next time.